The 2025 NFL Draft seems to be strongest offensively at the wide receiver spot. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Wednesday. Made it to the midpoint of the week. Also, the point where we as a fan base start to get up off the floor, right? We've got other games to play. Losing hurts, but you give yourself some time to get over it, and then you get over it. So, we'll have more to say about what comes next for the Seahawks later today, but first couple videos on Wednesday, pretty much always going to be college football prospects that caught my eye positively last week. I've been doing this video series for a while now this year. I've done it for every college football week we've had. So I'm getting a pretty good idea of what I like and I don't like. And by the way, sorry, the frame rate for this video is kind of low. I don't know why. I can't really isolate a fix there, but the frame rate is a little bit low and I can't really do anything about it on the fly. Doesn't really matter for a video like this, but anyway, back to the draft class. It just seems to me it's not that good, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I do think that there's one position where things are great, wide receiver, and I've been looking at wide receiver. I think this team will need a wide receiver in this upcoming draft. I think that this long-term plan we might have of going with the three receiver set of Bobo, DK, and JSN, that needs to be scrapped. That's not going to happen. That's not going to be a good offense. So just to skip ahead real quick to the receivers that I listed out this week, you can see there's some really interesting guys. Tez Johnson, really small but productive, had a 100-yard game, had a touchdown on 6 catches, 8 targets. Kyron Lacy, 5 catches, but over 100 yards for LSU. Not even an amazing game or anything like that, but a good game. Daniel Jackson in Minnesota. Currently, the aggregate barely has him getting drafted, but he's a guy turning in impressive performances every week for the Golden Gophers. 9 catches, 12 targets, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Probably the best game any receiver played this week. 82.6. Ayo Manor of Stanford. Alec Ayo Manor, the one player on that Stanford offense that's notable for draft reasons. He for him went off. Remember, he doesn't have a real quarterback right now, really. He doesn't have even a college-capable quarterback. 11 catches, 96 yards. It's hard to get those yards in that offense, man. 73.3. And Tetaroa McMillan of Arizona finally had a big game. It's been a while for him. He had been getting shut down for a while, but he went off for over 10 catches. Over 200 yards and a touchdown. So these receivers are nice. And there are guys that I almost never talk about, like Luther Burden, because Luther Burden has, just been really unproductive, if we're being honest. And maybe we as talent evaluators don't like that as we're trying to evaluate these players. But there's a lot of receiver talent in this draft, and it's really good. It's the kind of draft that almost makes you think this league is going to get saturated with them soon, because so many recent receiver draft classes have also been really good. Like, if we have a few more draft classes like this, every team is just going to have like 3 Pro Bowl capable wide receivers. But other than that, man, it's rough. Like, let's go back in order. Let's go back to quarterback here. And these guys I have listed out for this week, they played well, right? They had good weeks. Miller Moss had a good game for USC, over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel played well, but Miller Moss, he's a day 3 guy. He doesn't have the tools to be anything much more than that. Dylan Gabriel's barely an NFL caliber player in my mind. I don't even know if he should get drafted. And if he does get drafted, it should probably be like a Brock Purdy situation where he's one of the last picks. Are we really celebrating that a quarterback had a good day statistically in Oregon's offense? Everybody does that. Every quarterback they ever had puts up good numbers. Riley Leonard, I was talking up Riley Leonard last year, when he was at Duke, but right now Notre Dame, you can see they have just turned him into a complete game manager. It's like watching Daniel Jones. And I know some people are going to say, oh, that's just because Riley Leonard used to play for Duke like Daniel Jones did, so you make that connection. But Notre Dame has really Excuse me. Ooh, my bad. They have turned him into Daniel Jones. They don't ask him to do much of anything throwing the ball. They keep things very simple and very minimized. They run the ball a lot, and they have Riley Leonard or Daniel Jones run the ball a lot. And it's not showing a NFL caliber QB toolkit to me, even though sometimes he does play pretty well like he did this week against Navy. Legitimate win. But we're not seeing the NFL caliber quarterback from him because Notre Dame seems to have him on a really tight leash, and they just want him to manage the game in a very Daniel Jones-esque fashion. And then you got Jackson Dart, who played good this week for Mississippi. It threw for a touchdown, almost 330 yards, but he's a complete product of the system, and we all know that, right? Like, he's not anything that I think is going to latch on as anything more than a backup at the NFL level. Now you got Shedeur. Shedeur's got NFL caliber talent. He could definitely be a first-round pick, just based on his ability. Maybe even a top 5 pick based purely on ability, but there's some real problems there. Off the field stuff, there's the way he talks about his teammates, the way he interacts with his teammates, the way his dad has built almost a cult of personality for him at Colorado. There's so many other problems there that's not really somewhere I'm interested in either, but this is what I'm saying, right? Like, the guys that we were hoping would maybe break free a little bit and really show their chops this year, they're not really doing it. This week in particular, I just had a really hard time finding any quarterback stuff I was enthusiastic about. Right? Cam Ward actually did not play that well this week. He didn't really do much of anything. Miami won, but they didn't need him to do much of anything to win, and he didn't do much of anything. I don't think Klubnik even played. I think they had their bye week. I don't know. It's just Carson Beck. I think he didn't play. Milroe, Bleh. It's just, man, it's just not a QB class that I think generates any excitement. And guys that don't have any business being high picks are going to be high picks because there's going to be that necessity. All right, that's it for quarterback, and we already did wide receiver. And like I said, it's a good receiver class. Tight end, I feel like it's an okay class. Again, a lot of it is being built around a guy like Harold Fannin, who balls out pretty much every week, but might not have NFL level skills. Like, I think that's still a little bit of a question mark. So it's hard to really get to the bottom of that one. But Tyler Warren had a good week for Penn State. 7 catches, 46 yards, only 8 targets. So efficient. 2 carries for 2 yards, by the way. So I don't know if I think he's lining up as a fullback every now and then. 71 PFF. Cade Prescorn, Ole Miss. Welcome back to the list. 5 catches, 71 yards on 6 targets and a touchdown. 73.3. Excuse me. Like I said, Harold Fannin, this was actually one of his worst games of the season for Bowling Green, but it's still a good game by the standards of any other tight end. 6 catches, 9 targets, 74 yards, and a touchdown. 2 carries for 12 yards, 66.6 PFF. That's probably about as bad as you're going to see from him, and it's still a touchdown in over 85 yards of offense. CapnQweef, I'm probably mispronouncing the hell out of that. CapnQweef of Utah, the Utes. First time this year we're talking about him, and you can see why with the performance. 5 catches, 5 targets, 113 yards and a touchdown, 80.2 for Utah. Final guy, remember, Colston Loveland doesn't have much of a quarterback to work with this year, so this is all graded on a curve, and it's still good, right? 6 catches, 8 targets, 67 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He gets in the end zone twice, 71.9. So he is the number 1 tight end in this crop, and that's not going to change after this week, I think. Good game by him. And then we get to the offensive line here, and I got to be honest, this week I really struggled to find much of anything. It was a terrible, terrible week to try to find worthwhile offensive line played games. Even Wyatt Millum was so below his typical standard, I didn't include him here, even though I could have, but it just didn't feel right, you know? But, yeah, left guard, I will give a shout out to Tyler Booker. He allowed 1 pressure in this game, but Alabama ran all over, what was it? Shoot, I can't remember the name of the team they played, but they ran all over him, 271 yards, 7.3 yards a carry. Parker Brailsford, his buddy on that offensive line for Alabama, 0 pressures allowed, 271 rushing yards, same numbers, right? Because it's the same offense, 7.3. So I want to give credit to both those guys. I will say, though, Pro Football Focus won't give them a break. Neither guy ever gets graded well. They're part of an Alabama offensive line that, is the leader of a great offense. At the very least, the genesis of their productive offense. And you look at the individual numbers, and things look really good. I don't know why Booker and Brailsford never get any credit for anything. Kind of an interesting oddity, I guess. Jonah Savainaia of, no, this is actually, I'm sorry, this should be Arizona, not OSU. Wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. This is the wrong name. How did I let this happen? I'm sorry, guys. You guys are actually getting a little bit of an outtake this week because this is supposed to be Donovan Jackson of Ohio State. Another left guard prospect that I've been pretty hot to trot on this year. He's playing better than he did last year. Allowed 1 pressure in this game. OSU really had no success running the ball, admittedly, but Will Howard had a pretty respectable game. So at least the passing game was able to do enough to produce points and get down the field. 70.4.5 PFF grade for Donovan Jackson. And the final left guard I had was Clay Webb of Jack State, one of these really small school guys, playing really good football this year. Jack State ran for 438 yards this week, 8 yards a carry. Clay Webb playing really good football for Jack State. And that's it for the left guards. I couldn't really find anybody else. Now, that's not that uncommon of a thing because left guards are rare, but it becomes kind of a big deal when you only have one center. I already talked about Brailsford. I think he played well, but that's the only center I found that stood out to me at all. And then right tackle was a Johnny Cornelius of Oregon. Oregon ran the ball well, almost 6 yards a carry. He allowed 1 pressure, 66.9. And then here's where Jonah Savaiinaina was meant to be, the Arizona guy. And by the way, Jonah may end up playing left guard as well as right tackle, so that flexibility shouldn't be overlooked here. He allowed 1 pressure. Arizona didn't run the ball very well, but they don't have that good of a rushing attack. 78 rushing yards, 3.1 yards a carry, 66.7. Thought both those guys played well, but then I couldn't find anything else. It was just kind of like bleh. Everybody was just like, I don't know if this guy really played well or not. I'm not seeing anything too special here. I don't feel the need to devote time to talk about it this week. So, really bad week for the offensive lineman, man. And yeah, it's just the offensive talent in this draft feels like it's mostly in receiver. There's a little bit in running back. And maybe like left tackle's okay. But in terms of the overlap with what the Seahawks are probably going to need, I'm not really digging it. But that's just the offense. Let's get to the defense a little bit later. I'll see you guys in a couple hours. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. And yeah, that's what I have this week for top draft prospects on the offensive side of the ball for the 2025 draft.